Welcome to The Brain Dump, where we study the psychology of success. Join us as we probe the habits, rituals, and routines of top-performing artists, entrepreneurs, authors, athletes, and more to uncover the timeless principles we can all use to take our lives to the next level. Are you ready to plunge the grunge that's been gunking up your mind's eye? Great, then let's get to it.
Guys, welcome to the Brain Dump. We got my man Anthony in the house. How you doing, buddy?
What's up?
Nothing much,
That's all
man.
That's all I got.
That's all he's got. He's a man of many words / not sometimes.
Sometimes few words. As you started saying that, I was starting to think that the way that we should do our introduction from now on is kind of like Flavor Flav or like a hype man. Do you remember like 1980s like hip hop hype man? We need.
Dude, I am the hype man.
Well, bring the hype. We'll bring the hype. Hype this guest. Who's this? Who's here?
You know what? We had the pleasure of interviewing and having don't say it. We don't interview. We chat. We had the pleasure of chatting with Monica, with Julie, and we really loved her vibe and the thoughts that she has. So we wanted to bring her on and share, kind of her story and what she's into. And if you want to introduce yourself briefly, you're welcome to, but and then you kind of tell us what we're talking about, and then we'll go from there.
Yes. Thanks so much for having me back, guys. I had a blast and was honored for the invitation to come back as well. And my introduction kind of ties almost directly into what we're talking about. So I'm Monica Fawn, and I was an artist and marketing assistant, and I turned into a brand consultant and website designer. And now I'm also the host of the Authentic podcast. And in the past 4 years, I've helped over 75 coaches, speakers, authors, and businesses become incomparable, on fire, on purpose, and most importantly, authentic with their brand consulting and website design. And I'm a Colorado native, and I like to say that I'm an adventurous homebody, which is not contradictory, because if you won't find me at home, then you'll either find me in the Rocky Mountains or on a tropical beach. But if I'm not there, I'm probably at home with my cat and my books. And actually, part of all of that traveling and being an adventurous homebody was tied so much into my desire to design a life I love and to live an authentic life of freedom. And one of the rules I made for myself that I've tried to keep my promise to myself, and I have for the past 6 years, was to travel to a new place, see a new place at least once a year, and to leave the country once a year. And so far, I've been able to do that. And while supporting myself through my freelance work, quitting my corporate office job. And I think that's a lot of where my clients, and I think your audience and real estate investors, are also trying to go. And something I just keep hearing over and over again is this desire for freedom, that we're always working towards gaining freedom, whether it's freedom of time or financial freedom. So I wanted to talk about an authentic life of freedom today. And I had kind of two parts, but they're so intertwined. I think we're going to be bouncing back and forth. But part one was how to live your truth. And then part two is creating like real freedom. Defining real freedom, like what does freedom take and what does freedom actually mean?
I love this. I want to talk about all of that. But before we do that, I'm curious. So 2020 was a hard year in terms of travel. So how did you guys overcome that particular hurdle? Did you look at taking like a scrap year and be like, oh, we'll just scrap 2020? Or what was your strategy there?
So 2020 was one of those years where the new place and out of the country happened to be in one trip. So I went down across the border into Mexico, where my partner is from, and we went back to his hometown. And so that was a little bit difficult, but it was in September. So it wasn't when we had like super crazy lockdowns, but Mexico didn't have the requirements for travel. And the state, still, the United States border is closed unless you are a US resident coming back from Mexico. So we were able to do that. But in our doing that, lots of masks and hand sanitizer, and not really seeing or visiting anyone while we were there. We just kind of went up into their version of the mountains and did horseback riding and stayed at his uncle's house. And I kind of just didn't tell some of my family because I know they'd freak out. So we avoided telling that. I told my parents, and then I was like, just don't tell grandma or my aunt because I'm going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was a lot of that in 2020, but I'm glad that you guys were able to like keep that that going. I know Austin did a fair bit of traveling as well. But let's talk about the concept of living your truth, because I feel like this is a really big, hard, heavy thing to unpack, because truth is the truth with capital T. So let's start like wading into those murky waters, maybe by defining, like, what do you mean by truth?
Okay. Whenever I speak of truth, for the most part, for me, I feel like it's inexorably intertwined with authenticity. And that's pretty much the basis and foundation for almost everything I speak about, when I try to teach and coach my clients through as well. But I think one of the best ways to unpack this is a TED Talk that I saw, maybe like 3 years ago. And it resonated so deeply with me. It really shook me to my core and started giving me that courage to really understand what my truth is and removing what maybe are untruths in my life. And that all, again, tied around my authenticity. But Ronnie Ware has a TED Talk. It's called The Regrets of the Dying, or that's the title of her book. But the top 5 regrets of the dying, I think 2 or 3 of these in here tie so much into truth. And to give a little bit of context into why she knows the top regrets of the dying, she was a palliative care nurse. So she was like moving into people's houses who didn't have family and taking care of patients in their last 3 to 12 weeks of life. And she talks so much about how humans grow a lot when they're faced with their own mortality. And looking back on their life, they were talking to her about a lot of these things that they regretted or wish they had done in their life. And the number one regret of the dying is essentially like my own personal mantra now. But the number one regret that she heard from men and women was, I wished I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So I think, to answer that, Anthony, our truth is what is underneath all these other expectations for what we have for our life. And what I'm saying, or that's the direction I guess I'm going with truth on this. And we can unpack it a little bit more. Should I go through the other 4?
No, let's pause there real quick. Let's process this and unpack it a little bit. Austin, you're awfully quiet. What are your initial thoughts as we start talking about? You said something there that I thought was very interesting, which was something to the effect of the untruths, and how as we try to get to the core of like our true selves, like the true underlying narrative, we can start by recognizing the untruths and maybe stripping those away. Because like one of the questions is like, how do we get to the core of our own expectations, or who we are, and not just society's expectations? So I'm curious, Austin, what are you thinking as you hear this?
I mean, ultimately, this gives me a little bit of chills, because I feel like this is what I've been doing for the last better part of a couple of years. Like I feel like moving out of addiction, I find myself to be very authentic in my story and what I share with people. But ultimately, as I started doing the inner work, I realized that a lot of the things that I was told as a child that I should stop doing, or the things that they champion me for now. And it wasn't until I could own those things and be comfortable with those things that my view of oneself, myself, was enough. And it's still a daily battle. It's still, of course, it will never go away. But ultimately, I think a large part of my life was lived through identities of what it was supposed to look like, or what I thought was supposed to be. And, I like to travel. I like to travel a lot. We're about to hit the road for 6 weeks. And Monica, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, but I get a lot of text messages or DMs, and they're like, hey, why are you traveling so much? Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. Like, what is your fucking problem? And what I realized through all that is it's really a reflection on them not following their truth, them not being comfortable with what they're doing. Because ultimately what I do with my life, I never hurt anybody. I've never malice. is just being myself. And some people are going to like it, some people are not. But my heart is centered in what makes me happy. And I think if I can continue to live my truths within my relationship with myself, my partner, my businesses, then I know that we'll be headed in the right direction. And the only time that we don't do that is when I don't follow my truths and I'm chasing something that I probably shouldn't be chasing in the first place.
Yeah. My personal story is kind of similar, or I think maybe really standard to America and society now. And that was, I thought that I had to go to college when I was getting out of high school, but school was just not working for me. I had anxiety and depression at that time. And a lot of, I think, my anxiety and depression was surrounding trying to be someone I wasn't. I had all my friends were the straight A students, AP, honors. I was the artist. Like, I wanted to just sit in the art room and just work on clay, and trying to force myself into that mold. My freshman year was all art classes. Then my next year after that was, some honors. And then by my junior year, I was trying to take AP, and I ended up passing out in my history class and getting sick, anxiety, depression, falling out from that. And then after I was able to heal from that, become a functioning human again, I was about 17, 18, being tossed out in the world of adultism. And I didn't have any aspirations for myself. I didn't know what I want or what I wanted. So I just followed the model of like the American dream. Okay, well, I don't want to be alone, so I need a partner. I want to get married. I want to have the nice car. I want to have the, nice corporate office job. And I think a lot of both of our clients have followed this route as well. And then I found myself in a bad marriage, like gaining weight, unhealthy, anxiety and depression were coming back again. I had my sweet car. I had this new construction house with 2 living rooms, 3 bedrooms for 2 people, and just trying to maintain that. And I started a path of personal development, and it actually came from just trying to fix my health. So this is important to include, I guess, as well. My health journey and trying to heal my physical ailments and issues helped me change my mind. Weightlifting for a year changed my mind more than it changed my body. And from there started coming guided meditations, reading personal development, like becoming more minimalistic. And I started slowly just retweaking and hearing my own thoughts and desires instead of everyone else's, like starting to shed those layers. And then I found myself just butting heads with this person I married that I lived with, that I built this life with, that I didn't want anymore. It's like, I don't care about having a house or the car. I don't want an office job. I would rather make a couple $1,000 and travel and not own a thing. And that was not the person I was before. So I had to do a do-over. I sold the car, I sold the house, I got the divorce. And then I sat there, I'm like, okay, starting from scratch, what do I want? Who am I? And what have I been chasing? I had the office job even after that, but within about 2 or 3 years, I then quit the office job and went freelance as well. So I did a do-over for the job. But I felt like in that office, I was living the same year over and over. I can't remember the quote, but it said, don't live the same year 75 years in a row and call it a life. And I couldn't remember from one year to the next. And that's when I made my first rule was I'm going to travel and go someplace new every year and get out of the country every year.
I'm just taking a note here because there's a lot here. There's a lot here to tie into.
Yeah.
On that last bit, there's some spark. Man, there's so much here to go to. But let's talk about the idea of epic days real quickly. It's this concept. I just made it up, but I heard about it recently from somebody else. I don't know what they call it, but the concept is interesting. And it ties into this idea of don't let this year be the same as last year, and it's the same with your days. If you really look at what your life is, it's just a confluence of days. That I'm all about habits and routines. That's been my method for overcoming my ADHD. And so habits and routines are very key to me. But the problem with habits and routines is that they're hardwired, and we start to lose sense of time. They become automatic. And when they're automatic, then we just keep doing the same thing over and over, which is good. Consistency is a good thing. But then what happens is you look back and you're like, what did I do last week? What did I do last month? And if you find yourself looking back on a day or a week or a month or a year of your life and you can't recall anything memorable, like it's going to catch up to you at some point in your life. When you finally get to the end of the road, you look back and you go, I don't remember what my life was about. I don't have these peaks and these valleys to kind of point to. So I think there's something interesting to be said about seeking out adventure and wonder and trying to find and create those spikes in your life. And doing that with intentionality, like right now, like what are you guys going to do today to create a spike in your day? So it's like, this is something, if this was like your last day on earth, what would you do to create a spike right here? So that this was like a really memorable experience. And I'd like to think that's this podcast, right? Austin?
Yeah.
I couldn't agree. Monica, it's once again chilling to me how similar our stories are, even though you don't know me. Got divorced last year, lost 70 pounds. And the working out when had to give away a dog and give away a house, and I had 7 boxes. The working out for me was my rock. It was, even though I was on the road, and I got in the car. I lived in San Antonio. I got in the car to drive to Austin, and I drove to California instead. And it was the first time in 37 years, I felt like I was doing something for myself for the first time. And the power in that moment was, I could tell you who I was on the phone with. I could tell you the feeling I had. I could tell you where the car was. It was an awakening, which proceeded for the next 3 months of just, and you're asking about freedom. And there's no amount of money, there's no amount of anything that can relate or ever get close to that feeling, right? And as we do podcasts, and as we put out content, and as we coach people, and as we do all these things, that's truly what they're seeking, right? But what they don't understand is the freedom is not outside of them. It's right in here. And if you can control your mind and you can control your body, and what you can control is all you can handle. I can't control what my clients are going to do. I can't control if we're going to build 30 houses this year. I can show up for it, but I can't control it. And, I've said this earlier on a podcast today, and I'll say it again. Kyle Cease this morning, I was listening to him on Lewis Howes, and he said that if you were to set your goals, they're merely just markers in your life. Because what we are, and Anthony schooled me on this earlier, what we are is right what we are today. And so your goals and what actually might happen might be even bigger than said thing. But that just shows all you have to do is show up, and you have to be available and present in this moment. And that, in my opinion, is the true definition of freedom, and no dollar amount's going to ever get you there.
You essentially came to the conclusion of the entire point of me wanting to include the freedom piece into this. I had 2 things I wanted to do, and I think now is the best time to kind of do it. One of them, I just wanted to, when I hear my clients spinning out on this, creating my freedom thing, I want to shake them, but I'm going to be polite. But here I don't have to be so polite. And maybe Austin, you can help me on this rant.
Yeah.
But first I wanted to shake and then give a hug. But the shaking is us and our society now, our freedoms that we actually have, but that we don't feel like we have. Like, we're freaking obsessing about wanting to live in freedom, like that we are entrapped. And it's a delusion. We are more free than much of humanity has been, and definitely than much of humanity has been in the past 500 years. So I want to shake people and be like, are you in a war-torn country? Are you in poverty? Are you living in famine? Do you have the oppression of a government right now? Are you being prosecuted for your beliefs, your gender, or race? We have this in America sometimes, yes. But many of these people I'm hearing this from, and I think our audience right now, like, I want to shake people and say, go read a book, go watch a movie about slavery, about our history of humanity, and then look at your life for a minute and stop. Because I think we know we're free, but we don't actually understand or live that way in our minds. So that was like my first, I just want to like shake people and be like, hold on a second. Like, let's look at this because it makes me want to cry sometimes.
There's one of my a quote that a mentor told me once at a pivotal moment in my life as I was trying to make some decisions about where I wanted to go and how I wanted to show up in the world. He said two things. He said, first, you do the world no favors by playing small, which we've all heard that one. That's great. The second one is that responsibility is the price of freedom. And that means two things. And it took me a long, long time and to understand the second part of that definition. So the first part that meant a lot to me was, if responsibility is the price of freedom, then what am I doing with that? Like, how am I showing up and making an impact on the world around me? But the second part of that is tied very closely with what you're talking about here, which is that we're all living in paper prisons. That's all it is. And if you can claim responsibility for your situation, then you can have freedom. That's the price. All you have to do is claim responsibility and you will be free.
Owning that responsibility.
But purely owning.
Yeah.
meaning it's the only way I got sober.
Yeah.
Like when I had somebody look me in the face and say, hey, dude, you got a lot of other people you're blaming. What the fucking role? What did you play in this? And then I was reading Extreme Ownership. It just so happened when he made that comment to me. And then I realized everything outside of me is not my concern anymore. It's what are you going to stand up on top of? Truly owning it, not the fake 2021 ownership, like real old school ownership.
And I think I'm so glad Anthony and Austin, you guys are talking about this responsibility, because where I am now is the 130% of the freedom I was searching for when I worked in the office job, which I had this analogy for it. I called it my prison. And guess what that did to me psychologically? I was in an office for 7 years with no window. I got my yard time for lunch. I had to literally have someone cover my desk to pee. And sometimes I thought I was going to break my bladder. It was so bad. I started calling it my prison. So what did that do to me psychologically? Well, once I got out of that, and of course, when you're working for yourself, people understand you might end up working more hours. And now you have even more responsibilities to bring in the work. You're not just sitting at the desk and the company you're working for is doing it for you. You have more responsibilities. And then we can fall back into that trap of feeling not free still, even though we've accomplished the thing that we thought was going to bring us our freedom. But we start feeling imprisoned, or at least for me, I started feeling imprisoned by my responsibilities. So what I wanted and what I signed up for, buying the house on my own mortgage, owning my own business, having a cat, like I have my own responsibilities that I signed up for. And then that was maybe keeping me from doing some things, but it was my choice. And I was letting my responsibilities and my choices then re-imprison me. And it's not the responsibility isn't the problem. It's not the responsibility that's what's keeping you from that freedom. It's the thinking. Like you said, Austin, it's the thinking is the root problem, and thinking that way, that our responsibilities now, that this freedom, that my house, whatever I wanted, is imprisoning me again. That's just a symptom of the deeper conflict. That's not the actual problem.
Yeah, if you're working a job, and you might be listening to this, like if you're in the audience, you're on the treadmill, you're in the car on the way to work, a job that you would classify as a prison. It's interesting because that means that you are a prisoner. And there's only one of two reasons that you're a prisoner. Either you're the victim, somebody wrongly imprisoned you, or you deserve it. And in either of those situations, if you're going to work and you hate it and you're like, this is my prison, but I deserve it, this is all I know, this is all I can do, like that is one of the first limiting beliefs that you have to overcome to recognize that, no, you don't deserve that. Like it's not even a question of deserving as much as seeking out the truth of what it is that you want your life to stand for. And this is something when you touched on coming out of high school and not really knowing, like you're suddenly put into the adulthood, and it's like, go. And it's like one of the things that they don't teach us in school is how to make decisions. And they certainly don't teach us how to make decisions about what we want our life to be. They teach us how to conform and how to memorize, and then how to go to, continue up the education ladder. But at no point do we ever stop and say, well, what is it that you want? What is your truth? What is your desire? And because that's hard, it's very difficult, and it's different for everybody. And so we're not equipped to help teach en masse to children, like, here, let's all go exploring what your deep truth is. And you can't control a room full of kids that way. And so I think what ends up happening is we lob onto the American dream or some other dream that society or a family is making for us, because we're like, well, that's easier than doing the work that I don't even know how to do anyway. I don't know how to find my truth. So that one sounds good. Let's go for that.
Totally. And I think, go ahead, Austin.
No, go ahead.
And I think that what I keep repeating to myself within creating this content and working with my clients is that we are trained from childhood age to conform to survive. And also then once we're conforming and surviving, now we have to compete to succeed. And that destroys our authenticity, our ability to be authentic, which is then us intrinsically knowing our truth, our desires, our strengths, what we actually want to go for. We're being placated all the time with distractions and other people's wants, desires, and opinions, especially through social media, that we are unable to start seeing and creating that for ourselves because we're just digesting and bombarding. It just shuts us down into autopilot.
It's so interesting talking to people who are maybe later in life, or they started to like figure out their own truth. And it's what Austin mentioned before about like your childhood restrictions become your adult accolades. Like the things that once you like get back to it, the things that you were told as a kid, like don't do that, do this instead, like those things that you were innately doing on your own that you were told don't do those things, you come full circle in your life, hopefully at some point where you realize that's the thing that if you live that now, everybody will celebrate you for.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I realize, and I see it in my clients, is that I would say, and I hate to put a number on it, but I would say a large portion of the American society, 60 to 70%, is in full-on survival mode. Well, when you live your life in survival mode, you can't create from there. If you can't create from there, then you can't tap into your gifts. If you can't tap into your gifts, then you're imprisoned. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to get to the next day, to the weekend, right? Or I'm going to get here so I can get there. Or, hey, I'm going to schedule out my vacation 6 months from now, and that's going to be my carrot on the stick to get to there. And then you get done with the vacation and you still feel the same way you feel. One of the things I find the most fascinating thing I've ever seen in my entire life, I can't explain it, but I think it's hilarious, is these people that are addicted going to Tony Robbins events. And they're the same person. They've been to 15 events. They paid the ultimate package, and they're the same person. Mm-hmm.
They're looking for the external transformation, right? Rather than the internal.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I told Anthony, me and Adam had a call for the book. And in my group that I'm in, my mastermind, this guy asked what the best sales book was. And all these people gave all these different answers. And then one guy writes, the one you implement. Yes. It's the truth in life. Mm-hmm. All these podcasts, all these books that you read, all the coaches that you have, all the seminars that you go to are great. But if you're not willing to stare that motherfucker in the fucking mirror and truly rip your soul apart and look in there, you're going to be exactly where you are now. And I call it stuck in neutral. And you're going to be unhappy, and you're going to blame it on other people. You know, one of the things I find the most fascinating about people is how much they talk about the fucking weather. Like, who cares? I'm going to let you in on a secret. It's hot in Texas during the summer. You're 37 years old. It's been that way for 37 fucking years. Get your life together. Like it's once again blaming something else. I'm in a bad mood. It's the weather. Mm-hmm. No, it's not. You're in a bad mood because you're in a bad mood. Because you're not happy with your life.
Can I push on this? I want to push a button real quick.
Sure.
I want to push a button because I don't know if I've really talked about this very much, but one of the reasons that I ended up moving out of California was because I was tired of the weather always being the same. Like you lose sense of seasons and time. So one year felt like the next year. And going back to what Monica said, that's like a recipe for disaster. So I was like, well, I'm going to move back to someplace that has seasons. Now I'm in Minnesota. We have hellacious seasons. But I actually find myself, I like talking about the weather in the sense of like when it's really cold here, that's something to note. And when it's really warm here, it's like, that's also really cool because in both instances, it's an opportunity to be grateful for this thing that's omnipresent that we take for granted. Like if you're living in Minnesota right now, it's 82 degrees, let's say, like be grateful for the fact that it's not 50 below. And when you're living here and it's 50 below, be grateful for the fact that you have a home. Right. And so like, it's this thing that we're talking about yesterday, how the news always reports the things that are bad. Because when you measure the ratio of good news in the world versus bad news in the world, good news wins. 98% of the news in the world is good. So nobody cares. Like we're just so inundated with it. Nobody takes notice. And so it's that bad news that sells. If we can just be present to all the good news, and the weather is my good news, Austin.
You live in Minnesota. I don't know what y'all do up there. So I'm just going to leave it alone.
They watch the weather.
In that case, Monica, we like to be tactical on this podcast. How does one go about finding their freedom and their truths? Where do they start?
Okay. So I think that personal development, and like you were talking, Austin, like we are on this journey of constantly growing, and taking action toward that growth is step number one. But I find that when we digest and take in too many how-tos, like you guys said, we stop kind of taking action. We're bombarded. We might not be doing anything about it. And I think that's where we also start getting a bunch of filters placed on us of how to do certain things, how to live what we should be doing. I felt like I had a breakdown this year. I was all productive and had my morning ritual and like was tapping into flow state and obsessing on it. And I had like, the 15 things I'm supposed to do every morning. And that completely broke down for me. And I had to find out like, where am I without my morning routine? And so that's a whole nother thing. But the how-tos, but what I think has helped me so much is, again, somehow this fitness, the physical training, taking care of your body. And actually, there's a quote from Bronnie Ware, the author, again, of The Regrets of the Dying. Let me find it really quick. She had also said that from the moment that we lose our health, it's too late. Health brings a freedom that very few realize until they no longer have it. So taking our health seriously. My parents were in a very bad accident. My dad lost his right arm. We have a lot of health issues within my family, and even with my mom and my grandmother, like just seeing people. So keeping care, I think, of our health is first. And then the other one in creating this tactical part. What I find when my clients come to me is that they've digested too many courses, too many seminars, too many freaking books, and they're all over the place. They've completely lost track of like their why, their direction, what they are to create. They're trying to do like 5 or 10 different things. So I think being more intentional before we digest any content and spending time alone to process our own thoughts and ideas. So like Austin, you go on morning walks. I don't know if you're listening to podcasts at the time, but with or without a podcast, quiet time, even if it's walking or working out, just letting our mind be still without digesting a lot of other people's input. And I think just sitting with and really asking ourselves, like, what is freedom? Austin, on your podcast, you also talk about what number do we need to reach our financial freedom, for us to quit our job? But then what is freedom for ourselves? Like, what do we actually want to do with it other than create more? Or like me, I thought I wanted to travel the world full time. I found twice a year is actually good for me. I like my house. Like, I like being around my family and stuff too. So where before I was like, yeah, I want to travel full time, I have complete freedom. Why have I not taken advantage of that? And I'm beating myself up for that, or feeling like, oh, I'm not doing as great. And I'm like, no, this is actually exactly where I want to be. But when I first started, I didn't really know that, because I was just watching everyone else travel the world and have these glamorous social media feeds. So I think letting go of expectations, judgments, and comparison, mostly comparison, doing some sort of health practice. And I think, I know this is very hard for a lot of people, but some type of journaling or writing, even if you suck at journaling or writing, just sitting down. And when you write, it allows your brain to think and process slower than when you're talking something out even. And it allows your own thoughts to formulate. I think people can reach better awakenings and awareness of what's going on in their minds, the roles that they're playing. One of the practices I did in 2020 was The Artist's Way. It was a book by Julia Cameron, and it's very much geared for artists. But one of the exercises was writing every single morning, and you have to fill 3 pages. Doesn't matter what the hell you write. You can write your name over, or you can just say gibberish or just your to-do list, but you had to write 3 pages every day. There is so much crap that came out, and she makes you read back and go through it. And I noticed when I went from beginning to end, it used to be super negative, very sparse and sporadic. And then by the end, it was inspirational, it was motivational. It was almost like quality content to create like podcasts from or something. Like it morphed because I was able to get all that out and start hearing my own intuitions, or some people call it like spirit guides or the muse, or you're talking with God more. It's, you have this like co-creation experience. It's an awakening and it's awareness. So maybe that was way too much to go too fast on, but pick one and then start doing it and just see how it works.
Yeah. Yep. So
too much.
No, it's truly not. So I think it's really not. There's just so much good stuff there. I think going back to the health, let's start there because everything starts and ends with health. Seneca said, the healthy man wants 1,000 things. The sick man wants but one. When you're sick, all you want to be is better. You just don't want to be sick anymore. And by the time you're sick, it's too late in most cases. So it has to start with the health. And the health, your physical state dictates so much of your mental state, your mood. Like that's the easiest way to start getting into a better place. The second thing that you talked about there was personal development. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about recently because I went through the same thing where I'm known as a personal development guy. Like I'm very productive. And I took like a month off of my morning routine. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't want to do it. And I talked about this on social media. I was like, I just needed to not do that because it was becoming the prison and not the path to freedom. And so the term itself, personal development or self-help or like growth, like these all imply that we need to constantly be building. And what I found is when you're trying to get to your truth or your purpose or just this state of happiness, it's not those things. It's actually just self-awareness. It's seeking what's already there. It's not developing something new. It's not helping or growing on top of that. Just figure out what's already there. And you do that through meditation, through silence, through introspection. And I think journaling is, I know I've talked about this a lot, is that writing is thoughts made manifest into reality. Like writing is the most powerful tool that you have to connect with your thoughts. And unfortunately, we weren't taught how to do that as kids in school. Didn't instill a lot of people with confidence in their ability to write. And so they shy away from it. But if you want to get to know yourself, there is no better technique. If you really want to know yourself and what you think, you have to write.
And I think, Anthony, you're talking about the stillness and this awareness, and you guys talk about stoicism a lot here. And I had been acquainted with the stoicism in all of my personal development research as well. But it reminded me of, I think it's called the Hawkins scale or there's lots of scales of human consciousness, but it shows it as a funnel. At the bottom area is red and it's narrow. And that's where our anger, our guilt, our frustration, just all of these emotions of suffering are. And we're usually suffering when we are not being authentic to ourselves, living life others expect of us, not feeling our freedom. And then the gateway into these upper levels where it's expanded part of the funnel, where we have joy, love, enlightenment, peace, is like neutrality. And that's kind of where like the flow state lies as well. Yes. So in our neutrality, I think that we can see both sides of this essentially and take it from there. I think that just kind of tied into what you were saying on that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Austin knows I love my stoicism. Give me some Marcus Aurelius, give me some Seneca all day, baby.
Well, I in my opinion, I think the ultimate weapon is self-awareness. You're never going to be perfect. You're always going to be wanting the more. And so if we're aware of these things, man, you know what? Today wasn't my day. But guess what? Tomorrow's another one. What you're protecting against is the spiral. The spiral of weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And so if you have the self-awareness to say, you know what, in business today wasn't a great day, but I got to see my kid play soccer, so it was a great day. I had a bad hour, it's a great day. That's where you change the narrative, right? But the reason that I hung on, and I have been getting more into stoicism, is this idea of Trevor Mao, too, the guy that's a sports psychologist, teaches this neutral thinking. If you're going to do $1 million, $1 billion deals, you can't be, I'm very highly emotional. You can't be that way in business. And so this opportunity of good, bad, indifferent, I'm going to operate from here, is kind of where I want to live in for the rest of my life. Now, here's the rub. The aggression, the anger, the chip on my shoulder got me sober. So for the last 6 months, I've been looking for that aggression, that anger. It's not here anymore. Why is that? Because I got rid of it. Okay, well, I need it. No, Austin, you don't need it because you're in a new level now. You're in a new operation. Things are getting bigger. And so the uneasiness to move into the new version of myself has been what I've been feeling for 6 months. But when I realized it, once again, self-awareness, then I can step into it clear and free and just move forward.
It's that idea that what got you here won't get you there. And the self-awareness is the whole game, because if you could just realize and be self-aware in that moment when things aren't going well, that everything that you need in life for happiness is you already have it. You just have to realize it and make that choice. It's already there. You know, when you say like that hour of business, that was bad, now I have this. It's like, you could even look at that and say, you know what? I'm still here. I'm still in the game. I'm still playing. This is what I signed up for. I chose this. Like, this makes me happy. You know, and self-awareness it's hard. It's scary, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of diligence. And the person, here's a really trippy thing too, is you might know yourself now, but tomorrow you're going to be a different person. Right. So you have to start all over.
So I heard this. I've only heard one other person talk about this. He was interviewed with Gary Vee. He was on $1 Million Listing, Luis, the agent that I love. And he said it to me, and I almost fell out of my chair because I was the only one that I ever thought I felt this way. I'm having this conversation with y'all right now, but I feel like my soul is right here next to me. And I'm correcting myself as we're having this conversation. So my soul and my body and my mind are separate. And I'm always correcting, always adjusting as I'm walking along with people, as I'm moving. So I'm always in motion of correcting. That's why I can always catch up with myself, because there is deep reflection later, but there's always in moment reflection with me. So when I'm coaching my clients, as I'm working on their problems, I'm fixing my problems as well too.
Austin, I think you hit it on the head. That is the truth. That is living a life true to yourself. When we have this awareness of it, then we can do that constant adjustment. And it's not like it's this moving target. It's just that we're constantly evolving. We need to meet ourselves where we're at. But I love just what you said right there. Now I'm getting the goosebumps. I have two things from this. Anthony, when you're talking about these highs and lows, or Austin, like you needed that anger. We needed to hit the rock bottom to get that motivation to move forward. I had always kind of had this analogy in my head since I was a kid. They would always tell me to like pick your favorite color of crayon out of the box. And I would pick black a lot of times. And it was that goth of a kid or what, to like, black is my favorite crayon. But I loved using black when I drew or colored because it made every other color more vibrant and beautiful. No matter what I was drawing, it looked great and complemented all the other colors. So without this darkness, without the bad hour of business at work, how much brighter, because of that hour of bad business, maybe did the kids' soccer game mean to you? And then when we're talking about this awareness, I think when we finally get out of this delusion that we're free now, we don't have to wait to feel or be free until we're successful. We start becoming more aware of like this society and cultural brainwashing that keeps trying to happen to us. And my awareness now, I feel like, has turned into not being the enforcer. We're talking about like that judge and that victim thing too. But so like an example would be, we have so many laws in society and we feel like those are what are keeping us maybe from doing things. But I think what it is the hundreds of thousands of these non-written rules of what's appropriate, what's acceptable, what's proper in any situation that are overriding us. And I honestly think like that's where our feelings of freedom lies. It's not that we're just free once we can do what we want. We become free when we can be who we are. And so I grew up with a dad who had a lot of rules, and they weren't like bad rules. He always had a better way of doing things. He was so efficient and really great at everything. So I was like, this is how you do things. And so when I go camping, like with friends and my boyfriend now, I'm like the enforcer of this is the best way to put the tent in. This is how you have to put your trash. No, it has to be in a higher tree limb so the bears don't get like, I'm running around being the enforcer. And I like, how does that work out for you? That sucks.
Okay. So welcome to my marriage.
Yes. So I think that was also maybe part of my situation in my marriage or something too. Like maybe I was overbearing in all these things. But yeah, it super sucks. My shyness and introvertedness keeps that in check. Unless I'm comfortable with the person, I usually am too afraid to say something. I'll like whisper something to my friend and then like I'll go fix it later or something. But I think that within these aspects of our society, we become the enforcers of all these rules. And I think that's where a lot of our inherent feelings of oppression might be in a society that is as free as ours. So I want to use COVID as an example, but I'm kind of afraid to.
Why?
I 100% agree with health precautions, but I think the most inherent best example of us policing ourselves and each other is COVID. When we would see someone with a mask not over their nose, we're whispering to each other in our head. We're like, oh my God, put your mask up. Like we're screaming inside of our head at people, or people are physically getting in fights or screaming at each other about how they're wearing a mask, all these things. Yes, there is a reason, but we had become the policers. Society and the government had kind of made this rule, but then us as human individuals, as civilians, I think we're the worst case of these enforcers. It started breeding hatred and starting fights and breaking up families between this and like the vaccine, everything. But we become our own enforcers as well. So like, let's say I'm a shy person. So when someone would be overly exuberant, like start singing and dancing in public, I get really uncomfortable. And because of my discomfort, I would start kind of shaming them, or I would do that. Like how you train a dog, you give them a reward or a punishment. The reward when they are doing well or they're behaving well is, oh, they have my attention. I'm happy. I'm giving them praise. And then when they're not, I'm avoiding them or my tone is short. And so we just become policers. And I think that is the plague oppression that we're living within this society now, essentially.
It's like we're all in the prison. There are no guards. It's all the prisoners are keeping each other in there.
Exactly.
Saying, hey, you're not allowed to leave.
Yep. And then when we start being the enforcer to other people, what are we also then telling ourselves? It's not okay to be extra exuberant in public, or it's not okay to cry in front of other people. Like we live with all of these, our own limitations. And I think that's the layer that is keeping us from our truths. And I think that is the major oppressor of our civilization as a well-developed country, especially when we get into business as well.
Boom. So Monica, because you're so you took so much notes getting ready for it, we're going to let you send the listeners home with their homework. What's the homework?
Okay. So I think the homework that we talked about, let's pick one so we don't overwhelm. I think a writing practice, maybe filling one page of a notebook, either morning or night, whatever time works best, and just writing down every single thing that comes to mind. A worry, a to-do list, whatever it is. Start seeing what's coming out, and eventually you'll get past all of those things, but all of those things essentially that hold us back, that stress us out, that make us feel limited. And then we'll start being able to understand our own truths, what it will take for us to feel free. And I think that just will awaken the awareness that we need. And there's a quote from Russell Brand that I think kind of ties this up so well. And he said that I think our job is to look for some truth beneath culture. That culture in many cases is not our friend. Culture is here to chain us to systems of subtle tyranny. What is freedom really if it's only freedom to operate in certain parameters? So I think discovering what parameters are you operating within, and like within my work, my own business, I don't believe my job as a branding and website consultant is to train people or to help them bend themselves to fit into these different shapes or molds of what they believe they need to be to market their business. I feel like my job is to get them to start taking their own shape and being able to discover and access that truth. So I think writing is a huge key to that, because when clients come to me for branding and website, when we're trying to build a business, the most difficult thing is the copy, because they don't know their message. They're regurgitating things they've learned or what they're taught, or they're following the trends, or they're saying what they think people need to hear. So yeah, I think that conformity to survive will not help you in business. You'll be buried and forgotten, and then pressuring you to compete with others. So writing now and becoming more personally developed, those are my best clients, and where my best clients' work comes from. Those people that come in, I know they've been doing personal development work or even had counselors or coaching, because their message is so much more empowering and clear. And that really is kind of this key to success that I think that we need.
Wonderful. Love it. Dude, you're a natural. Crush that interview. Guys, if you like this episode, send it out to your friends, share it with anybody that you think would get some value from it, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at the Brain Dump. Now, before you go, it's important to solidify what you've learned here today by taking action. If all you do is listen, then you're only going to retain a small amount of the information you consumed here today. So take a quick moment to really lock in any key insights, tidbits, or pieces of wisdom that you want to carry with you into the future. You can do this by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review with your top 3 takeaways from this episode. If you've already left a review, first, thank you so much. Second, it's time to start a Brain Dump journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a slip of paper will do, where you can record a couple quick thoughts from each episode. Science shows this is one of the best ways to ensure long-term retention of new information. And finally, if you've got a brother, a sister, a coworker, or a best friend that you think would benefit from this episode, do them and us a favor and share with them this episode. Your support, as always, means the world to us.